So I really like the idea when we talk about the mind is like a garden. And you might be familiar with this statement, and you might have an idea of what it means. But my goal today in this video is to help you expand that idea of what can potentially mean for you by understanding that the mind is like a garden, right? So let's take a moment to visualize a garden, right? Now, we plant the seed and take a moment to sort of see the seed being planted. And then we water it, and then that seed becomes a tree. Yeah. The mind is the garden. The seed is our thought. So we plant the thought seed in the mind garden, and then we begin nurturing with water. How do we nurture with water? By focusing on it, right? The attention and the focus that we give to that thought by focusing on what we want or focusing on what we don't want is the nurturing of the watering. And I want you to take a moment to see that tree growing, right? So the tree grows upwards and also downwards. And let's take a moment to imagine that this tree is, when you feed the thought and when you continue to feed the thought, it becomes a certain pattern in our life, right? So the tree begins shaping its pattern. It could be, the extension of the thoughts could be your behavior, your life circumstance, and all that, right? So the tree becomes having this certain shape based on that pattern. And let's take a moment to imagine that this sort of shaped tree is something that's not serving you, right? And then there's a beneath the ground of the garden and above the ground of the garden, and you see the outcome, the shape of the tree. But we don't see what's beneath the ground of the ground, that the roots and how those being formed, right? That's the dimension of the subconscious. So what we want to really begin examining is here two things, right? So a tree that's being shaped in a weird way, let's say if that represent your life circumstance or some sort of thinking pattern or some addiction or some behaviors pattern that's not serving you to move your life to fulfill your desire. Yeah, something that we want to stop doing. Notice that if we want to understand, right? Because we don't want to get absorbed by that energy. We want to understand, the root of it. So we want to kind of explore the garden and then, begin taking that tree out of that garden, right? But what we want to understand also is that if we continue to focus on the tree and then try to straighten the tree that has different shape, right? That weird shape, you can see how that is difficult, and we're gonna take a lot of time to try to correct it. But the garden and planting the seed and growing a tree is a circular, right? A cycle. You can create a cycle of that, right? So if you wanna create a different experience, nurturing the garden of the mind, you wanna plant a different seed to begin growing a different tree. And I want you to begin noticing that these trees represent your identity, portion of your identity. Yeah. So the mind exists as a garden, and you can grow any tree in the garden to be able to form and change your identity. But many people are focusing on that tree that has grown in a weird way and try to change it. What we want to do is to explore that root of it and then put it aside, identify that that tree exists, and then we want to begin focusing on planting new seeds to begin filling up that garden with a new identity. If your focus stays on trying to change the old identity, you're busy focusing on that. But the truth is that in order to let go of the old identity, that tree that you grew, you must identify a new seed, a new tree, and begin growing that tree simultaneously. So you start focusing on the new identity that you want to grow. Yeah. Now take a moment to begin visualizing removing all those identity trees that are not serving you. And you're begin planting the seed of new identity. Now, the seed or the image of the new identity, the thought that the new identity would think. Yeah. So we want to begin focusing on creating the new version, thinking in a new way, feeling the new identity, so we can fill up the garden of the mind with the tree that we want to be feeling, we want to be demonstrating, we want to be expressing, so that the mind can be filled with the beautiful, fantastic, and ideal identity trees. Does that make sense? I hope this gives you an idea of how we can use the garden of the mind, to the analogy of the garden of the mind, to be able to feed ourselves with good seeds, and how to deal with the seeds and the trees that are not working. There are two parts in this, right? To be able to understand that relationship between the seed and the tree, your thoughts and image into an identity, and then we must let go of focusing on trying to fix or change who we have been from past to present, and identify those, and then begin focusing on planting new seed, new image, and new thought that the new identity will think, new feeling that the new identity will feel, the new belief that the new identity would be believing, so you can see yourself with strong trees in the garden of your mind. I hope that makes sense. Feel free to comment if you have any questions, if you have any comments, and I'll see you in the next video.